Our guest today is a candidate for mayor of Chicago. He was first elected to the city council 29 years ago as a reformer and supporter of Mayor Harold Washington. His election helped give Mayor Washington a majority in the city council. Our guest today served as one of Mayor Washington's most trusted allies. In 1992, he was elected as the first ever Mexican-American to the Illinois State Senate, and he served 2 terms down there. Our guest today serves as Cook County Commissioner. He earned his undergraduate degree in political science and his master's degree in urban planning from UIC. Our guest today emigrated with his parents from Durango, Mexico at the age of 10. He lives in Little Village with his wife, Evelyn, who's right here. Let's give her a round of applause, Evelyn. There we go, there we go. Thank you very much. Our guest today is the proud father of his daughter, Rosa, 2 sons, Chava and Samuel, and the proud grandfather of 3 beautiful geniuses who are his grandchildren, Tanya, Mateo, and Noah. Ladies and gentlemen, Chuy Garcia. All right, have fun.
Thanks, everyone who came here, and thank you, Clerk of Cook County, David Orr, the only mayor, I think, in Chicago history who never had a fundraiser, according to what Paul Green blurted out. That's quite an achievement, Mr. Orr. Maybe you should have had one, though. Thank you, Mayor Doherty, Mayor of the City Club of Chicago, for that very wonderful introduction, very generous. I want to share a few thoughts with you because my candidacy surfaced overnight, and some people are still taken aback by it, perhaps why only one elected official may be in the room. But let me tell you this. Others haven't received their newspaper yet. We're just 3 months into my campaign to take back the city of Chicago, and I have never been more confident of success. So this afternoon, I want to share with you my vision for a revitalized city. It starts with a fundamental shift in our priorities, because the real question of leadership at every level comes down to priorities. My priorities are very different from those of Mayor Emanuel. 4 years ago, President Preckwinkle and I took over a Cook County government that had grown notoriously out of touch. We began by cutting the hated sales tax passed by our predecessors. We continued that record of fiscal discipline year after year, refusing to raise taxes on county taxpayers. The Civic Federation called our leadership at Cook County accountable and efficient. I believe that this is the kind of leadership Chicago needs and our taxpayers deserve. Standing in stark contrast to the county, let's look at the city's management of one financial tool. The TIF program is perhaps the best example, or the worst one, if you look, depending on how you look at it. Designed to spark investment in impoverished parts of the city, the tax increment financing program has become an excuse to reward already profitable companies with property tax subsidies. The rewards go to the politically well-connected, and the bill goes to homeowners who have to pay more in taxes, and to school children who lose funding for their education. Working families are not a priority for this administration, but they are for me. I will work for them at the center of my administration's agenda, especially in the area of education. My commitment to public education runs deep. My wife is a former teaching assistant, recently retired from the Chicago public schools. All of our children attended public schools. The mayor's decision to close 50 schools and drive teachers out on strike for the first time in 25 years was a defining moment for his administration. Mayor Emanuel likes to say that he makes hard choices, but there's a difference between making hard choices and being hard-headed. The mayor never imagined that he would lose the strike, but lose he did. And that was the moment that people in our city began to believe that it was possible to fight back against the mayor's agenda. My education platform calls for giving the school system back to the people through an elected school board, smaller class sizes, decreasing the number of high-stakes standardized tests, and placing a moratorium on all further charters. We must provide our students with proper books, libraries, and recreational facilities, plus course offerings in languages and the arts. There should be no more school closings, and we should do all in our power to undo the damage to students' neighborhoods that suffered the needless mass closings under this mayor. We're the only school district in the state of Illinois with an appointed, not an elected, school board, thanks to state legislation passed in 1995, which I voted against, but our current mayor supports. This is the board that closed our schools and cut the education budget under his direction. Would this have happened with an elected board, responsible to citizens and not an all-powerful mayor? I seriously doubt it. And I have little doubt that an elected school board would have undertaken a vastly different and more interactive process prior to any school closures. I see an elected school board as a question of constitutional rights and civil liberties, the right to elect those who govern an institution so vital to our city. School systems are perhaps the main governmental bodies touching the lives of a majority of our citizens, especially minorities. That's why I believe an elected school board is a constitutional right. One of the first acts as mayor that I will take will be to go to Springfield and ask the legislature to revoke the mayoral control legislation and let Chicago take its place with the rest of Illinois by having an elected school board. If this fails, I'm prepared to file a legal challenge to the existing law. I have spent my entire career, both in and out of public office, bringing people together, trying to unite communities and fight for better neighborhoods throughout the city. Before joining the county board, I served as a state senator and alderman. Those early campaigns served to break the back of the machine on the southwest side and set the city on a path towards reform. I live on a block with a public school and a church in the same bungalow where my wife and I first moved into 25 years ago. In my own neighborhood, I founded an organization called Enlace Chicago, which created a groundbreaking new school inside the public school system. 4 small schools in a shared facility campus, sending kids from North Lawndale and Little Village in unprecedented numbers to colleges and universities and as productive leaders of their communities. In the world of philanthropy, I have spent 11 years on the board of the Woods Fund, a grant-making organization whose mission is committed to the promotion of social, economic, and racial justice through the support of community organizing and public policy advocacy that engages people that are most impacted. The mayor and I have very different backgrounds, and we have very different visions for the city. The sharpest difference between us is on the issue of public safety. I will keep the promise that the mayor broke when he promised to put 1,000 new officers on the street. Without those officers, we will never be able to end the heartbreaking violence that has taken the lives of so many of our children. Violent crime is a staggering problem throughout the entire city. Under this mayor, Chicago surpassed New York, a city nearly triple our population, and the total number of murders. While our murder rate has declined in the past 2 years, the number of murders and gun violence is at an intolerable level. Just last night, 2 more Chicagoans were shot, a 22-year-old man in Austin and a 34-year-old man in West Englewood. Instead of putting more than 1,000 new police officers on the street, Mayor Emanuel has contributed to producing more than 10,000 shootings during this time in office. Chicago saw a 15% increase in shootings last year alone. But let's stop thinking about this as a matter of statistics. All of us need to stop and think of the fact that last year alone, there were 432 bodies on our streets, murdered children, teens, and adults, and many more times that number of grieving families, neighbors, and friends. As a Cook County Commissioner, I've been working to get guns off of our streets. Too many arguments that have turned deadly because guns are so abundant. And although the Supreme Court recent interpretation of the Second Amendment has made it more difficult, we must address this issue in every way that we can, including tightening background checks for gun owners and enhancing penalties for crimes committed with guns. I was proud to be the chief sponsor of Cook County's new ordinance, Protection of Minors, which also protects kids from gaining access to guns. I also fought successfully to toughen Cook County gun laws, including banning a broader range of assault weapons and stiffen penalties for violating the ordinance. Of course, any approach to the crime problem must be multifaceted. We need fewer guns, more ways to peacefully resolve conflicts, and job opportunities that offer alternatives to criminal activity. We also need community policing, a term too often misunderstood and misapplied. True community policing remains a proven and effective way to both solve crimes and actually to prevent them. It constitutes a genuine partnership with the neighborhood based on trust built over time. It takes training and commitment. In Chicago, we have tried many approaches and run through numerous police chiefs without solving major problems, and in some cases, exacerbating them. Embracing and training new community policing is not a simple or easy task. It requires a degree of restructuring the police department, as well as permitting a great deal of decentralization and autonomy to those officers with both individuals and organizations in the neighborhoods to which they are assigned. There needs to be a long-term and ongoing commitment to genuine community policing. Instead, the current administration has inconsistently supported the previous administration's CAPS or beat representative programs. In the 2013 budget, for example, there were 26 CAPS positions in the District Law Enforcement Division in the police department. The following year, the number was cut to 15. Facing re-election, Mayor Emanuel partially restored these cuts by adding back 10 CAPS positions in the current budget. However, neither Emanuel's nor his predecessor's CAPS programs embody robust community policing. For a decade, there were neighborhood meetings between police and commanders and concerned citizens, but as of 2004 evaluation of the program by Northwestern University's Institute for Policy Research noted, over time, fewer participants report that they have seen action or taken in their neighborhoods because of the meetings, or that beat meetings are very useful for finding solutions to neighborhood problems. Beat meeting attendance is also not particularly representative of community. There is now a large body of work studying community policing, with success stories in places ranging from Macon, Georgia to LA. The continuing level of violence in our city suggests that we need a fundamental new approach to policing, true community policing. Los Angeles, our second largest city, with a police force that was once considered by many to be among the most brutal and corrupt in the nation, made the kind of radical change we need in Chicago. Here's what they say now, having made that change. Quote, "The Los Angeles Police Department strongly embraces the philosophy of community policing in all its daily operations and functions. Community policing is based upon a partnership between the police and the community, whereby the police and community share responsibility for identifying, reducing, eliminating, and preventing problems that impact community safety and order. By working together, the police and the community can reduce the fear and incidence of crime and improve the quality of life in neighborhoods citywide," the report says. If LA can do it, why not Chicago? We're the key to each other's security, and we all have to take that responsibility to heart. We need to invest in the services that support Chicagoans and enable them to pursue full and healthy lives. We cannot give up on our kids, our neighbors, or the power of restorative justice. Those who have committed acts of violence need to be held accountable, but in most cases, they also deserve to learn from their errors, especially young people, make restitution, and forge productive and meaningful lives. I believe in the practice of restorative justice. That starts by bringing together the perpetrators of crime to come face to face with the victims of their actions and engage the entire community to serve as witnesses to an apology and to be supportive. I've spent nearly 3 decades in the rough and tumble of Chicago and Illinois politics at every level, from the legislative to the administrative to the nitty-gritty of neighborhood and community building. And I have built a record of success every inch of the way. I know how this city works, and I know how to make it work better for everyone. I want to thank you all for your attention, and now I hope I'm ready for your questions.
Okay. Ready for this one, Ed? This is from Leonard Dominguez. Uno Metropolitan Leadership Institute. All right. How do you develop a ground game? This is not a too politically connected organization, is it? A ground game when Chicago Aldermen may not be able to support you for whatever reason. You start off with a sandbag and it gets better. Go ahead. Here you go, Julie.
Thank you, Paul. One, if you have a robust network of people on the ground, when you announce your candidacy, 3 weeks later, you filed the greatest number of signatures of any other candidate without paying 1 cent. Over 1,000 people circulated my petitions, and as we move toward February the 24th, Election Day, we will have an army out there. With the endorsements that I've received and will continue to receive, people will not be a problem. In addition to that, we today opened 6 neighborhood offices throughout the city of Chicago. We have a downtown office, and we're not done there either. We've raised over $1 million, and some additional dollars will be coming in the month of January before it's over. And as we move into February, this race will be a real race, and we will compete everywhere in the city of Chicago.
The Honorable Dave Lundy has a question. Where are you, Dave? Raise your hand. There you go. How do you... It doesn't get any easier. How do you plan to bring more revenue into the city coffers to pay for better schools, roads, and more police?
First of all, when I'm elected mayor, and as we begin to work toward an elected school board, we're going to scour the earth to figure out where additional resources could be coming from. The increase in the state income tax took a toll on our municipality, and that we lost money in terms of the funding formula change that occurred. We will look at that and ask the legislature to give us a fair share. We used to have a fair share before. There aren't any easy revenue solutions on the horizon. It will remain one of the most difficult challenges that we face. But I also want to remind you that spending under this administration increased by $1 billion. There is additional money if there is a political will to make things happen on questions of public safety. I believe the same is true in education, and we will continue to work for people. Obviously, we will continue to have significant challenges until we move forward to have a more progressive system of taxation in the state of Illinois, as neighboring states like Wisconsin and Minnesota have. States that have a fairer system of taxation are faring well, even in spite of the economic recession that is nearly behind us.
This one is from Christy Hansen. Where are you, Christy?
Right here.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. What would you do to fix, another easy one, what would you do to fix the city's major pension problems? Let's make it easy on the guy. 50 words or less.
Well, that's the $600 million question, of course. To address that question, several things are in play. The pension challenge that we face. One is we're waiting for the Supreme Court to rule. You can speculate about how they might rule or not. That will then make it incumbent upon the state legislature to act. We're hoping that they will act courageously, but not holding our breath completely, that will happen. Then we'll get an accurate picture of what the challenge for Chicago will mean. My hope is that they will provide some relief. I'm open to the idea of utilizing a portion of the tax increment financing dollars that are available to make a good faith down payment once we acknowledge, if the court rules that way, that it is a contract and that retirees are due and that contract ought to be honored. There's also an alternative with respect to pension reform in Illinois. That's the bill that Senator Cullerton advanced out of the Senate that has some labor union support. That one could also have interesting implications in terms of impacting the pension crisis that we're dealing with, but those will be some of the things that we'll have to look at. It may also require restructuring once we acknowledge that we have an obligation, the debt for the long haul. The pension obligation debt has been with us for a long, long time. It is now here and responsible, and we are responsible for addressing it. But look, I'm a marathon runner. So the pension problem has been with us for a long, long time, and I'm going to take a deep breath and continue working to figure out how we can do it and how we can sit with all stakeholders and come to a solution that will be realistic and honest as we move forward.
Gerardo Cardenas from ARP. Chicago's population is rapidly aging. However, most current policies and programs are targeted for those younger people and younger demographics. Very easy question, Julie. What policies would you implement to address the concerns and issues of the 50-plus population? By the way, 50 pluses ain't all that old. Go ahead.
That's an excellent question, excellent observation. Many of the transportation initiatives and other policies of this administration are seeking to woo younger generations. Being a member of the 50-plus club, I think that we need to be more thoughtful about this. We have very little in the form of workforce development initiatives that think about people who've lost their jobs and need to be reintegrated into the workforce with dignity. We need more thought in this area of how we make the city responsive to people who are older. See, there are a lot of senior citizens in Chicago neighborhoods that also contribute. They pay taxes and they want a better quality of life. We need to be more equitable in how we invest in city initiatives, whether it's transportation, whether it's public safety, whether it's investment in Chicago neighborhoods, which would be a priority and a centerpiece of my administration. You've signaled a very important area, Gerardo, in asking that question. A lot more needs to be thought about what we can do to improve the quality of life of 50-plus residents in the city of Chicago.
The next question is from, since I blew that one on to his name, Jerry Lathero. Where are you, Jerry? Cowards die many times before their death. Well, I'll assume you're here. Oh, there you are, back there. Well, Jerry, it's a good question. You may be able to move up. Will you, sorry, Father, I know. Will you, oh, geez, look at these questions. Julie, will your changes in education cost more? Now, Ms. Lewis, please. If yes, will you raise taxes or decrease monies going toward other government services? Welcome to the City Club.
The crisis that we've had with us in public education stems from the fact that we have an unfair and regressive system of taxation in Illinois. I believe it needs to be tied to what we earn in income. Because Illinois has a flat tax, we don't fund the most essential things like public education and health care in a better manner. So groups are always being played off one against another, depending whether you're in education or healthcare or other essential services for a civilized society. We will continue to have this issue haunting us, but we're not alone either, because many other localities throughout Illinois, because of our regressive taxing system, are facing these problems. It should urge us to become champions of calling on our legislature and leaders in Illinois to move from a regressive system of taxation, which is unfair and burdensome to many sectors of the economy, to a more fair approach of sharing the wealth of the state in investing in the most basic things in our society.
Okay. Becky Levin, where are you? Becky, I'm reading your question because it's incredibly neat, but you're not a member, Becky. So this is your mulligan. This is your mulligan. Okay, here we go. Good question. She is from Straightening Chicago's Youth, the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago. To make our city safer, how will you balance investment in law enforcement with investment in preventing violence from happening in the first place?
As I made brief mention in my remarks, I'm a strong believer in the tool of restorative justice in Chicago. You're going to be hearing a lot more about restorative justice this year because philanthropy, nonprofit practitioners, community activists are banding together to roll out restorative justice practices in Chicagoland. It is urgently needed. It is a tool that will bring back the idea of community, of bringing together victim and perpetrator of incidents and harm. It seeks to restore, it seeks to heal, and it seeks to involve community where community fabric has been torn. That is one of the components of my public safety initiative. I also believe that in order to reduce violence in the most violent communities in Chicago, you need to have strategic employment initiatives, especially for young people who, because the access to jobs is so limited, are oftentimes lured into illegal activity, drug trafficking, gang violence, on and on. And that only continues to tear at the fabric of community. The other component that I spoke a bit more about was community policing. My call for additional policemen and women in Chicago who are well-trained, ready to engage communities in building relationships of trust and mutual respect comes from the idea that we have to move in this direction. Chicago is behind other cities who have embraced community policing. That would be my four-pronged approach to improving safety in Chicago neighborhoods.
Well, we have a couple of more questions. Some of these questions I'm not going to ask because they're out of the purview of our speaker and what we're doing today. But surprisingly, Ms. Lewis, we have a couple of questions from the Chicago Teachers Union. A Jackson Potter? I went to Chicago Public Schools. I know what an R is, okay? Chicago Jackson Potter and Audrey May. Much neater. Okay, here we go. First from Jackson. To what extent has the mayor's housing policy refusing to release Section 8 vouchers contributed to the problems in education and violence in the community?
The Chicago Housing Authority for the past 4 years has sat on resources, large amounts of money, millions of dollars that could have been used for housing development. They've also sat on a huge number of housing choice vouchers that could have been given to people who need those vouchers to find housing. When people don't have adequate housing, they contribute to criminality, they contribute to violence. It is a contributor to the serious problem of violence that too many communities experience, particularly on the south and the west sides of the city. There are, on any given day, 6,000 homeless people in the city of Chicago. There are also approximately 20 to 22,000 children in Chicago public schools, in high schools mainly, who have a very difficult situation with respect to housing. Many of them are members of the LGBT community. Others have been victims of domestic violence, and we're not addressing the housing issue because the focus has been, for the most part, investing in the shiny city that we see in the central business district in Chicago.
Okay, now, Audrey, I think your question has been addressed, so just because I said you're going to be able to answer it. How will you engage the community to help combat escalating crime and gang violence? This effort includes community leaders and residents. I don't want you to repeat everything, but.
You know, I mentioned when someone posed the question of how I would win this and what my path to victory is, I think that was the question, that over 1,000 people came forward to help me circulate petitions. That is indicative of the vast network of community builders and organizers and block club leaders and people from churches all over Chicagoland and mosques who said, we need to move Chicago in a new direction. Those will be some of the key folks that will help convene meetings, dialogues about how we can govern the city in a different manner that puts the neighborhoods first, that addresses the most critical issues facing the city, which are public safety, the need for good schools in neighborhoods everywhere in Chicago, and then begin tapping the talent and the ideas of community practitioners who have been working on how to bring manufacturing back to many of the brownfields that exist on the west and on the south side of the city of Chicago that have tremendous potential for manufacturing, for clean industry, for urban farming, that can create jobs and be a real stimulus for the local economy. There's tremendous potential there to be cultivated. Because it hasn't been a priority, we haven't realized it. It will be one of my important thrusts as a community builder and as someone who understands urban planning in the Chicago context.
Okay. We have two more questions, and penmanship has got to be reintroduced. Karen, you're going back to work today. Yesterday. All right, John. Just want you to know. Dan Marquez, where are you? All right. You write. A previous mayor. No, erected, created, whatever that word is, a Department of Neighborhoods. Would you consider creating such a department again?
Interesting idea. I would appoint a deputy commissioner to work out of the Department of Planning or whatever we choose to name it as we move forward. It's been named so many things over the past several years to focus on creating new clean manufacturing and industry in Chicago neighborhoods. My entire government will be neighborhood-centric. So whether we create a department won't be that important. I believe that critical to the city's sustainability will be bringing prosperity to the neighborhoods. If Chicago is truly to become a world-class city, it needs world-class neighborhoods. The priority is now to bring the prosperity that we've seen and witnessed and experienced in the city center to Chicago's neighborhoods. We need to grow our population in Chicago only by ensuring that neighborhoods begin to be revitalized, that we sow new seeds of hope there, that people believe that Chicago is a good place to live in, to grow old in, to play and learn in. Can we establish a truly world-class city? It is critical. Chicago's population needs to grow. All the growth cannot continue to be simply in the downtown area. In order to have balance, we need to grow our population in our neighborhoods through new housing, through improved safety, through schools. When we do that, we will have greater balance and sustainability for our city. Transportation, the creation of jobs, new infrastructure throughout the city is critical. We've already invested significantly there. We need to tap the resources and the potential to ensure that Chicago remains a great city in the 21st century.
Okay, well, Last question, and though you describe who you are, you don't say who you are. Who's the proud graduate of Noble Network of Charter Schools? Who wrote this question? You are. What's your name, dear? Got that? Okay. One semester, so I'm sorry. Would you consider expanding wow, what a question to end. Would you consider expanding high-quality, proven charter schools while finding a way to address our traditional CPS schools? And she says, you could read that. I know the feeling.
Sí se puede.
Which means?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sí se puede. I wanted to make sure he's not pulling a Manny Torres on me. Okay, go ahead. That's for you old Chicagoans.
Yes.
There you go.
As I stated previously in my remarks, I believe that there has been a charter mania in Chicago for quite some time. There's been also a TIFO mania in the city of Chicago, just embarking on creating too many for the sake of creating more. I know that there are some good charter schools in Chicago, but I think we need to pause because there are also many that are not performing, many mediocre ones, and many that are performing below the standards and the performance levels of Chicago neighborhood schools. I would not rush to judgment on creating additional ones. I think we need to examine what has occurred. I'd love to continue the dialogue with you and to listen to folks from all quarters, but I think a great priority for me would be to ensure that we have quality neighborhood schools in all of Chicagoland, that we invest in high schools so that we don't have this mad competition of parents desperately looking to enroll their children in selective enrollment schools and then being heartbroken because they don't get in. I totally empathize with that, but if we invest in all of our schools and if we make things like advanced placement and have the dual language and multiple languages available in arts and culture, that is what investing more equitably in Chicago is all about. To those of you who have labored for successful charter schools, I congratulate you. I'd like to continue the dialogue as we move forward to ensure that every child has an opportunity to attend an excellent school in Chicago.
How about a big round of applause? All right. Two, we got some awards.